Nothing like compressing a weekend of work into a 7-minute video.
So I put this out on Instagram the other day, but I'm doing a challenge, and that's to build a farm table and 2 benches in one day.
So job 1 was to clean my garage so I had an efficient space to work in. It was also a great excuse to do a time lapse. Job 1 was to break down my rough material for my tabletop. Not to sound like a wood snob, but I haven't worked with construction grade lumber in a while to build furniture. And like most things in life, the more you put in, the more you get out. So I definitely took my time making sure I could get these boards flat and square as possible. The tabletop was for sure joinery overkill. I used glue, pocket holes, and dominoes to put this tabletop together. For sure I didn't have to use the dominoes, but the plan with that was I wanted to make this as seamless as possible, so the dominoes really just helped with alignment. So the backstory on why I wanted to build this farm table in one day was I needed a challenge to make this interesting for me. Farm tables aren't something that I do a lot anymore. It's not something that I get excited about just based on the design and the fact that I've done them so much. So I figured that making the best farm table I could in one day would add enough of a challenge to keep me interested. With the most secure tabletop the world hath ever known drying in clamps, I started making the aprons for the tabletop as well as the 2 benches that would go with the table. I went through the same milling process with the apron once I got my rough lengths cut down. The reason being I had 1x6 pieces for my apron and I only needed the apron to be 4 inches. This also made for straighter, more consistent pieces. So I did opt to plug my screw holes as opposed to just using wood filler, even though the bases were getting painted. With the glue mostly dry on the tabletop, I could get back to putting in the support braces on the underside of the apron, which would attach the apron itself to the tabletop. I'm just batching out the same supports to go underneath the apron on the benches. With that put aside, I started squaring up and trimming the tabletop to its final length. Instead of gluing up legs to make the 4x4s required, I actually bought the stock, which I've never done before. This was more than double the price, so good thing I ordered just enough material. I was super glad I thought to set up this camping awning. By halfway through the day, it just was pouring. By this point it was early evening and I was able to start on attaching the legs. So I started with the stools and I used my table saw, which was the flattest surface in my shop, to be able to measure out exactly the right height into the apron the legs had to go. So we've reached the part of the video where I really humbly want to say thank you for checking out my channel and checking out my video. If you like what you see, I'd love to see you subscribe or at least hit that like button. That helps tell YouTube that it's a video worth watching. Thanks guys. I use these corner clamps just to hold everything on the table apron square so I could come back and attach the cross braces in all of the corners, which acted as strength, but as well were the devices that I attached the legs to. With the corner braces now glued and screwed into place, I started drilling out the holes and lining everything up with the legs to be able to add the leg bolts that would hold everything in place. The leg bolts also make it super convenient if the client ever wants to take the table apart in the future. With the table base done, I was able to flip everything onto the floor just to check it for level, do some additional measurements, and get my tabletop moved in from outside. Before calling it a night, I did take the time to round over the edges on the bench slats as well as on the tabletop and just a bit of finish sanding. With the build complete, the next day I came back and started the staining process. The client requested this classic gray stained by Minwax, and for the base we went with just a matte white. So as a subtle reminder, at the beginning of the video, I said I wanted to build a farm table and 2 benches in one day, which I did. The finishing process, you can't rush the finishing process. So it took me about a week to build up the layers of finish on both the base and the top. Finally, I was able to attach the base to the top, and this table was done. Thanks again for watching. If you want to see more of the behind the scenes on builds like this and others, go follow me on Instagram. I post there fairly regularly. Thanks, guys.